Hey Pitmasters, today we are doing a big 700 gram tomahawk ribeye steak. Reverse seared, low and slow, and then grilled and seared off in the fire. Let's do it. Right, so first thing, we've got our tomahawk steak here. We're going to pour some olive oil over one side. And then what we're going to do is use a paper towel to rub this olive oil in and even it across, just so it's like a nice sheen that the rub will stick to across the outside of the steak. So I've leveled that olive oil out nice and evenly. Now we're going to use my favourite steak rub, Hardcore Carnivore Black Charcoal Beef Rub. It's like a 20-20 split of salt and pepper, a bit of paprika, garlic, onion powder, and activated charcoal in there, which just gives it a real nice bark on the outside of the steak. So we're going to rub it up pretty liberally on all sides. And we're just going to sprinkle some on the sides of the steak here too, because we don't want to just, we want to have the whole thing as a crisp, nice rub. Just going to soak up some of this olive oil on the other side. Pour a bit more on here. And we'll rub up this side too. And we've got this whole thing evenly coated as well as we can. Get this thing really nicely coated, and again, we'll do this side too. It's a fine balance on how much to get. You want to be liberal enough, but not completely soaked in the rub, but enough. Right, now to monitor this cook up until about 130, 135 internal Fahrenheit, which is then when we're going to take it off smoking and we're going to sear it directly over the flame. I'm going to use the Meter Plus wireless probe smart thermometer, hook it up to my phone, keep an eye on the temperature, and when it starts to get close, we know we're getting time to direct grill it. So we got our Meter Plus probe here, just going to chuck it in the thickest, largest end of the meat, and we're ready to put this thing on and get the smoker going. This cook, I'm using lump charcoal with a bit of briquettes in the bottom, basically because that's what I had available, and a good mix will do it. And the lump charcoal gives that great smokiness. So between the briquettes, the lump charcoal giving off some wood smoke flavour, also going to add these hickory logs for that perfect smoke ring and hickory smoke flavour. This is going to be real good. Basically, there's some burnt coals at the bottom, a few. That's going to burn through to the lump and the briquettes on top, and then eventually smoulder and smoke on those wood chunks. Then we'll put our grill grate on, and with this side we have access to the fire if we need to adjust for any reason. Get the lid on, and we want to dial this temp in and come back when it's about 250 Fahrenheit. So right now we're at 100. When it's 250, good to go. Right, I've come back after about 20 minutes, and a perfect 250 Fahrenheit. It's ready to put the tomahawk steak in. Right, now that our kettle's up to temp, we're going to put the steak over this side, indirect, away from the fire, and let it smoke for a while. Now, one thing I want to make very clear is, this is how I do my tomahawk reverse-seared steak. Doesn't mean that's how you have to do it. There are a few different ways to do this. So mine is indirect, smoke it till it's around 128 to 130 internal, which is, just teetering between rare and medium rare, and then I'm going to grill it directly over the flame, which will bring it up to that perfect 135 medium rare temperature. Some people do the pan method, where they'll indirect it for a bit, then they'll heat some butter in a pan, like in a skillet, and when the skillet starts to smoke at the bottom, that's the searing off at the end, and it's sort of the juice, it braises in its own juices. Some people like the other method I love, which is basically the spit roasting method, where they'll dangle it. They'll extend the steak on a string or rope or over a cage or a chain and just hang it over the coals and chuck some wood chunks in there, and they will let it pretty much, charcoal cook the entire time. And then even like another method I like is, once it's reverse seared up there, like indirect cooking with just a little bit of heat under it, towards the end to sear it off, just lower it and drop it directly into flame, get a big flame up happening and drop it into it. So there are a few different ways to do a reverse sear. But this is probably the most common, and this is my favourite, and it's the easiest, and it doesn't take too long, and you get a great result. So this is just one way to do it. Experiment, play around, see what works best for you. But for me, it's the wood chunks over the coal, and I've got a mix of lump charcoal and heat beads, just standard briquettes there, just to, was what I had, so I just mixed them together. And lump gives that extra smokiness. Then the wood chunks for that real hickory smoke flavour, indirect, and then at the end to bump it to that final temperature of medium rare and to seal in and caramelise all the rub and the juices and really get this thing hot is get a bit of a flare up with a fire happening and just sear it directly over that both sides, and then let it rest. Now for a tomahawk of that size, I'm going to let it rest for, I'm going to let that thing sit for a minimum 20 minutes, and then I'll figure out from there how long. But it depends on the size. Play around. People always say an hour or 40 minutes, or per pound of meat beef you got to do rest for 10 minutes. There's no formula. It's just enough time that you'll work out over time that you're needing enough time for the juices to go back in, for the meat to expand and absorb that, and the temperature to raise. And it just makes for a tender, perfect, juicy, moist cut. So you'll figure that out as you learn. It's a learning curve. It really is with barbecue. But we're not far off now, moving this thing directly over the fire. So we'll go check it. So this thing's getting good. We're pretty much at the temp, 128 internal Fahrenheit. And so now we're going to sear it off over the fire. Get a look at that. So nothing too special about what I'm doing here, but it's damn fun. I'm just trying to get as much flame around this whole thing to caramelise up this the rub and bark it up a bit, and bring that temperature from that 128 roughly internal temperature up to about 135 for a perfect medium rare steak. I'm going to just flame up all sides and then let it sit here for a couple of minutes on each side once I've flamed up all these corners, and then we're ready to go. Woo! Check that out. Now we've let it rest for about 20 minutes, and now we're going to carve this thing up now that all the juices have gone back in and it's raised our temp up a little bit. And remember, like with any bit of protein, you cut against the grain to get the perfect slice. Look at that colour. An absolutely beautiful, perfect medium rare. It's borderline rare, but it's still falling in with that medium rare. It'd be a little more red probably towards the bone, but these slices are a perfect medium rare. Look at that. Whoo! Zip. Here we go. Oh, God. Wowzers. That is incredible, man. It's so smoky. That rub is so full of flavour. Perfect medium rare. So tender. Man, we've done a good job here. Cheers, everybody.